Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Elsa De Silva. Thank you so much for joining me on daily reflections during COVID-19. And today with me, I have my friend Rukmini Iyer. She is the founder of Exult Solutions, and she's also a Rotary Peace Fellow like myself. Hi, Rukmini. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well. Busy, I guess busier than usual, but yeah, good going
all of
so
us
far.
are on all of us are on multiple Zoom meetings right from morning till evening, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
And
you
sometimes
have
the middle of the night, but yeah.
and this evening you have one with the Rotary Peace Fellows, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that's one on resilience, which has been, of course, a part of my professional work for a long time in terms of looking at leadership resilience for businesses. But yeah, it's high time that we also transfer that skill into our general worlds.
Can you share a little bit about this resilience and what exactly do you facilitate for business leaders and how can it be applicable to us?
So, while the work has been in the business context, it's really quite universal. So, it's not necessarily something that has application only in business. So, what we're talking about is how do I learn to access resilience in terms of accessing my own capabilities in times like these? Also, looking at how do I extend myself to others? How do I support communities and people around me? And also, can I extend further into looking at contributing to building systems that work for everyone? So, the whole idea of the self being available for self, supporting others, and supporting systems. And the whole idea of resilience really is looking at, can we shift consciousness, whether it's in business or in the development sector or in our personal lives? Can we shift from an ecosystem based consciousness to an ecosystem based consciousness, which I guess is, for me, it's also the message of the coronavirus. Can we move to looking at the ecosystem and work from there?
During this COVID-19, we are seeing that the best examples of, whatever intervention that is being deployed, whether at the government level or the institutional level, it
Mhm.
really depends on the leadership being empathetic. And I think part of this resilience that you're talking about is empathy, and how can we move from ego to really empathy in whatever we do, whether it's policy making or in defining our work, designing our work, and even our life, the way we live it. Can you share
Mhm.
a little bit about empathy?
So, okay, so let me share it from another context. So, part of my work is around trauma, and I mean, trauma is very closely related to resilience. And traditionally, research has always suggested that when we are in trauma, the response is typically fight or flight or freeze. And having said that, most of these early research subjects from which this theory comes have been men, and men that have fought wars and been traumatized in the process and so on. And we notice that when it comes to women, women in trauma don't necessarily go into fight or flight. They tend to, their response is really to tend and to befriend. And to really look at ways of nurturing, to look at ways of connection with others and supporting self and supporting others, which really is empathy in practice. And if you look at leadership around right now, if you look at the way an Ardern in New Zealand is responding versus a Trump or a Modi in India, uh, we're seeing that in action in terms of the feminine, and I don't mean women as in necessarily cisgendered women. I'm talking of people that are able to access their feminine energies, are looking at the situation not as a war that needs to be fought out there, but something that needs to be taken care of. We need to nurture ourselves, we need to nurture our planet, and how do we do that together? So for me, empathy is in a way about, yeah, recognizing the fact that we are connected, whether we like it or not, whether our ego allows that acknowledgement or not. We are, and can we be rational enough to acknowledge that and work with that?
I don't know about you, but I am really, thrilled to see all those pictures every day about the earth regenerating herself and healing. And even a
Mm,
city like Bombay, which
mm,
is all hustle and bustle every day. Like my road is so
mm,
crowded, it's so noisy. I hate walking down the street because there's absolutely no space to walk, for example.
mm,
And when I
mm,
go down now just to pick up some groceries, it is silent. It's absolutely silent. It's surreal, and it's in a way very beautiful. Um,
mm.
what is it like in your suburb in Mumbai? I mean, I know you did say your building is under heavy quarantine,
It
but
is, yeah. Oh yes, I mean, the dust levels are so much lower, and that's a huge relief given the amount of cleaning otherwise that would have been required. But yeah, I'm noticing that there's so many sparrows that one can hear. I literally wake up to the call of birds these days. I don't even need an alarm. I notice my plants growing in a way that's very different from what it is usually. So they're sprouting there are pots that are sprouting their own thing. I mean, I haven't even planted some seeds and I see things sprouting. In the suburb, yes, there is. It's definitely much, much quieter than usual in the sense I live like right in a market lane, so it's extremely crowded. It's not a place that one would feel like stepping out for a walk at all. And it's for the first few days, I think it was a little disorienting to for it to be so quiet, but I'm quite enjoying that right now. Of course, there is that heavy quarantining, given that in my building particularly, a lot of us are business travelers, so it makes sense for us to kind of have a self-imposed rigid quarantine, which means I haven't stepped out the house for about 3 weeks now. But yeah, there's still enough connection in spite of that.
coming back to feminine energy,
Mm,
you're a facilitator on
mm,
this particular topic. You write a lot about it, and this is not restricted only to females. It's for everyone to get in touch with their feminine side. Can you
yeah.
share a few tips, like what people can do during this lockdown period, because it is a moment of pause and reflection where we can do some internal check-ins. So
Hmm.
what are some of the tips that you would give to people listening to this show? And every day I have people logging in right from California to Australia and everywhere in between, so they would really benefit on how to get in touch with their feminine energy and make that shift from an ego to an
Hmm.
empathetic outlook.
Hmm. Uh, well, a simple, practical ways would really be uh, first thing would be to connect with your bodies, right? In whatever way that means for everyone. So connect with your body could mean, to really listen in before you eat, in terms of, does your body really need a meal right now, or is it a matter of habit and the clock says it's lunchtime, so I have to have lunch? Is it really about that, or are we allowing the body intelligence to speak? I think for me, the language of the feminine is very somatic, it's very body based. So listening to the body it does feel like a key to the feminine in many ways. um, Also, another thing that can be done to access the feminine while we are home is looking at uh, what what are the patterns that have fallen into which are sometimes hyper masculine? For example, uh, the kind of priorities that one might have, right? We typically, for a lot of us in urban spaces, particularly, that there is this whole game of priority around career or family being at the top, and then there is health, and there is finances and other things, and then the idea of really relating, connecting with people, connecting with the planet that we so take for granted, sometimes doesn't even feature in the priority list. Sometimes it's at the fag end of it. So this is a good time to look at how can we really place what is essential at the center and place everything else around it in a way that it can serve that center, which would mean, in essence, if you're shifting from patriarchy to accessing the feminine and the masculine energies consciously, it would mean a shift from hierarchy into heterarchy, where we're looking at the fact that everything is connected and therefore everything is important, and we can't go into this mindless rat race of achievement without taking cognizance of the fact that there is impact on everything else around as we run that rat race.
That's really very important. And I mean, I don't know about others, but for me, for sure, once this is over, it's more about mindful living. I was anyway on a journey of decluttering my life. 3 years ago, I sold my car. I don't shop as much as I used to. I was never a shopper, but like they say, if you can fit all that you own into a backpack, that's
Yeah.
all actually you need, and that's what you should aspire for. So I'm going to do more of that, but also from an interpersonal relationship, being more connected to the people around you, checking in with them often. We were talking about this before we went live, about checking in with our teams. Not a one woman organization, but you work with several organizations, don't you? I did
I
see
do.
on Facebook that you were doing a session with an NGO that works with a lot of young leaders. What are the young people going through at this time? Because I do have a team of very young women, and they were feeling overwhelmed at the start of this crisis, and it took a lot of intentional check-ins and positive messaging to make them feel comfortable and acclimatized to this journey that we are all on with COVID-19. Can you share a little bit about how are you helping these young women build their resilience to address COVID-19?
Uh, I think one is, of course, building resilience in terms of physical health, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and looking at how do we bring that into alignment. That's one part of the work. But I think particularly for younger people, this is a great opportunity to step back and look at reconnecting with their purpose. What is it that life is offering an opportunity to them to do right now, and start acting from there, because they may not necessarily be as sort of married to their careers or to notions that older people might be. So it's a great opportunity to exercise that flexibility and look at what is really the way that they can serve in a manner that is sustainable for themselves in terms of their own health, their relationships, and also in a way that is sustainable for the world. So I would think a great way to utilize this time is to connect with their purpose, and that's been a part of the work that I have been doing, particularly with youth leaders, to look at uh, can we look at purposeful engaging with the world. Uh, Having said that, I also noticed that there are a lot of spaces being offered online around uh, people wanting to support each other as we go through all of this together. And my only hope is that those spaces come from a place of trusting the resourcefulness of these young people, particularly, that they don't need guidance, they don't need to be told what to do. uh, it's just a matter of holding space as they figure it out. And particularly with younger children, I notice a lot of parents panicking about, oh, my child is bored and what do I do to keep them busy? And I've been telling them to allow them the privilege of boredom. It is through boredom that they really figure out what they are good at, what their interests are. And it's a gift to be bored if one has that luxury of time. So yeah, I think even for adults that should apply, that yeah, we should once in a while allow ourselves to be bored rather than be hyper busy.
I think this has come up before as well, with some of my other guests. The
Mhm.
privilege and the freedom to be bored, to just pause, to not be busy all the time, to be kind to yourself. And I
Mhm.
think we should practice what we preach. So if we are not hard and harsh on ourselves, then we will allow others around us as well, whether it
Yeah.
is our children, our parents, our spouse, or our partner, or even our team members, to just
Mhm.
be, you
Yeah.
know. Because, this period of uncertainty is really unsettling for many people. Mental health is going to be a big issue. It currently is, but
Already is.
it already is, but we are not talking enough about it.
Mhm.
Violence is on the increase within the home. So we just need to be kind and empathetic and allow people that space, hold that space for others around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about holding space? Because you and I talk about it in the course of our work, but actually, the general audience, they don't know what holding the space means. So, can you just share what does it mean to hold the space?
um well, if I were to deconstruct it, for me it would have a few simple elements. One is, can I listen without having the need to respond? Right? Listen just in order to listen and to acknowledge the presence of another. That for me would be a very important component of holding space. The other would also be to listen with trust in the resourcefulness of the other. Right? That if my partner or a child or my team member comes to me and says, I'm flustered or I'm scared or I don't know what to do, uh, to listen, yes, and also to uphold the trust in them, to say that I know that given time and space, you will figure this out. And you don't need to be told, or I don't need to solve a problem for you. I can be there and hold your hand while you solve your own problems. But yeah, it's a matter of simply providing presence and not really going into solutioning for them. And that, I guess, would be very crucial for holding space for me.
We always tend to jump into solutions, right? Like we know it all and we believe that we can provide the answers, but we don't actually do, because our journey may be very different from somebody else's. Um, yeah, so thank you for those tips. You, like me, are a Rotary Peace Fellow,
Mm.
and we have quite a few Peace alumni in Bombay and in India. And I do want to give them a shout out. Mr. Rajendra Ruya is the Rotarian responsible for submitting and selecting the Peace Fellows and the Peace Fellow applications. He's really passionate about it. And Rukmini and I, we tend to be buddies when people are applying, because it's quite a rigorous application process. We sit on the interview committee and we help select those applications that go on to Rotary International. And of course, then once the alumni come back, then we host several sessions. So please, if you are interested in the Rotary Peace Fellowship, there are two different programs. One is a full-fledged master's program in 6 different universities around the world, and one is a 3-month, I think it's now become a 1-year program, but
It's
a
become,
3-month.
yeah, 3 months residential and 1 year online.
Yeah,
So
and that's in Bangkok, the one that Rukmini and I did. So please.
Bangkok and Uganda now. There are two
Oh,
centers. Yeah.
wow. Okay, great. So please apply. Rukmini, I'd like to ask you, what does it mean to be a Rotary Peace Fellow, and how did actually applying and being part of that fellowship experience help you in your current work?
So for me, the fellowship experience gave a very solid academic background in terms of conflict resolution and peace building. While I was working in that space earlier, there are nuances that one misses when one is not grounded in theory. So that was definitely very useful. But more important than that for me is the network. The fact that there's a peer network of, I guess, maybe a couple of thousand people around the world right now, and the fact that there's so much that's possible when one connects with this network. Like we are currently, I'm in the process of working on a project on resilience. With one of the Peace Fellows, and we're trying to deploy it in Hong Kong to start with, and maybe replicate that model around the world. Also working on a couple of peace dialogues, Indo-Pak dialogues, and that's in the making right now. So there's so much that's possible with that network in terms of contributing to a newer ecosystem that all of us are trying to build.
And I do notice that our program director from Chula, Ajan Vitun, is watching this. So, hi Vitun, I hope you're having a great time in Bangkok. It's we were just talking that unfortunately the Peace Fellowship had to end about a week or so earlier, but at least they could get home safely before it got really bad and the travel restrictions were in place. And we have Anjali Vartak, who has also sent us a couple of comments. She says, most will cherish this time once we see the back of COVID-19 and are back to our normal lives again. The thing is that in the moment, you don't appreciate the time that you have and whatever, the space, like being with your family, the time to re-energize yourself. And later, when you look back, you're like, oh my God, I wasted it. It's even if you just use this time to just be. You don't have to be busy enough. You can just read books, you can just do yoga, meditation, pick up a new skill and hobby, etc. Right? So yeah.
And having said that, I guess part of that comment scares me, in that I really hope we don't go back to normal in the mindless normal sense of the term. I really do hope that we go back to newer ways of being and engaging with the world, which is more sustainable for everyone.
So what do you do every day to stay grounded and keep yourself positive?
Well, there's enough space and time for meaningful work that's happening in this current context, so that is a huge fuel. Besides that, of course, basic self-care practices like movement for the body, a little bit of meditation before I end the day usually. Also spend a lot of time with my plants, and even cleaning the house seems therapeutic in many ways. So a lot of those practices do keep me grounded.
And what is the one thing that you're going to do once this COVID-19 is over? What is the one thing that you're looking forward to doing?
I guess hugging friends, that's something I miss. A nice physical hug with people that you connect with is always nice. And yeah, that's one thing I would want to go back to.
Isn't it strange that, the simple pleasures of touch, the physical touch is denied to us during this COVID-19? And several people have told me that the first thing we're going to do is go and hug our friends because, we really miss that. And I do believe that maybe if we take the time to appreciate what we've taken for granted, maybe we will learn to, be more mindful when this is all over, to ourselves, to the people around us, to the larger society, and of course the planet with all its living creatures, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank you so much, Rukmini. It was fun chatting with you. And thank you for
Thank
all
you.
these tips on feminine energy and mindfulness. And for everyone else, please tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. We have Kiran Mandral joining us. She's an author, and she used to be with She the People, but she's written several books across various
Various
genres.
genres.
Thank you, Rukmani. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.